Hello, hello. Welcome back to
Yay.
the Living in Alignment podcast. And I am your host, Amy Starr Allen. And before I introduce, I need to turn off all these notifications real quick. Before I introduced our beautiful guest today, I just want to let you know that this is the beginning of a special series that I'm doing on the podcast for a new community that just launched called Thrive, where it's a community for women over 50. And this series is part of the member spotlight that we're doing so that we can learn more about some of the amazing women in our community and just see, some of, who they are, some of the things that they're navigating in their lives right now, and just help us to get to know each other a little bit better. And we have so many powerful women in there that are super inspiring, and so some of them might not want to be public on the podcast. So if you want to see all of the interviews, you would need to join our community, in which case you need to be a woman over 50. So if you want to do that, you can just go to amystarallen.com/thrive. And I'll also put the link in the show notes. And then some of them I'm going to, air live on my podcast for the ones that are comfortable being live. These are going to be vulnerable conversations, so not everybody's going to want to go be public with them. But tonight I have the privilege of introducing somebody who is one of my best friends in the whole world and somebody that I've known for over 30 years. She was my roommate in college, and we've been friends ever since. Beautiful and amazing Gretchen Ritter. And Gretchen is a mother of two successful sons and a 25-year veteran of the fitness and wellness space who has led numerous teams and hundreds of fitness professionals nationwide for EOS Fitness, the Bay Club Company, Town Sports International, Sports Club LA, and Spectrum Athletic Clubs. As an entrepreneur, she opened a boutique studio and created a new multi-family fitness amenity management company. A proven leader with a passion for sales and service, she is a sales educator who transforms product enthusiasts into powerful revenue producers, an industry thought leader utilizing an innovative approach to the membership model, a connector, and a visionary driven to identify opportunities and find solutions that improve the lives of others. And Gretchen has also been a Malibu resident since 2018, and she recently lost her home in the Palisades fire and all of her belongings.
Yeah.
Um, so, like I said, her and I we've known each other for a really long time, since college, over 30 years. She's one of my ride or dies. She's an amazing, amazing woman who's been through a ton. We're going to talk about some of that today, and she always lands on her feet. So I know you're going to find this conversation very, very inspiring. So how are you doing tonight, Gretch?
Good, good. Yeah, hopefully the track record remains the landing on my feet part.
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't know how many lives I've blown through, but
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing to see, to s- to just to watch you. A lot of my friends know that, one of my dear friends lost her home and all of her belongings in the fire, and people are asking, they're like, I'm so sorry for her and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, me too, but it's she's the most inspiring person I've ever known, because in the midst of my own, I'm going to cry even just saying this, like
yeah,
my own struggles that I'm going through in my life and my own confusion about where to move to and things like that because of the situation that I'm in.
yeah,
I watch you just gracefully navigating this situation where, like, you lost everything. So,
yeah,
um, so it's just not only just navigating it, but I've watched you create a community, like a website for your community, and Zoom meetings for your community, and a resources place for people, a Dropbox place for people to put
Yeah,
their
yeah,
photos. Like you're rallying the community to help others in the midst of your own stuff.
right.
So yeah, it's just been amazing. So I'd love for you to share, anything that you want to share about, about this experience, with the fires, but
Yeah.
also, you know,
Yeah, it's fascinating to be both in grief and gratitude simultaneously. That's the one thing that I've been, when people are asking me about what's that experience like, to be overwhelmed with gratitude, with the love and support that I've gotten, but also be just constantly confronted with the grief. And grief is, it's not just about the belongings, right? It's about the community. It's about the, like the, just the things that were lost in the fire, were the connections with my neighbors, with the people that I saw on a regular basis. I mean, it's crazy. Like even the people that I knew at the grocery store, going to a new grocery store now, and not Marshall used to be the guy I would order my groceries, and I would drive up. It was a hack. I'm all about life hacks, right? And so it was a hack that I had where I would like order my groceries, and Marshall was very particular about making sure he knew exactly how I liked my avocados, and what kinds of, whatever, the produce and stuff like that. And so I lost Marshall. You know what I mean? And so it's just trying to, every day you kind of get confronted with new stuff. Initially it was insane in just trying to just establish everything that I had lost. And it's interesting. I was hanging out with a friend yesterday, and we were just, we were both talking about how easy it is to cry because it just comes up. It's I was talking to someone recently about soup. It was just she had just made some soup, and she was talking about her recipe, and I had my mom's recipes. And one of the things that she made was amazing split pea and ham soup, and she would make it after Easter every year with the ham bone, from the Easter ham. And I had this, I had all of her recipes, her handwritten recipes, and I used to love to read through them because she had beautiful handwriting. And anyway, I told this person that I was so grateful that I had all my recipes, and in that same instant realized that I had also lost them all. And it's just things like that happen all the time now. You know,
yeah,
it is weird. It's weird.
yeah. I remember you sharing that story with me. I also remember you sharing how, like, you got out of the shower and you didn't have any of the products that you normally use to do your hair. You didn't have, I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
Like, what, and that, that set you into tears, even
Yeah.
though it was a silly thing. It's just like a constant reminder of just
Right.
literally having to start over. Like your dog doesn't have any toys. Like
That's right.
you lost your computer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
just,
lost my computer. I lost some really dear keepsakes of mine that I had been traveling with for there was a poem that was written about my Aunt Gretchen, in 1943, and it was done in calligraphy by the nuns. It was a priest had written a poem about her at age 10 and gave it to her on her birthday. And I had that hanging in my bedroom as a child, and I carried it with me throughout my whole life, and I just lost it. Because honestly, I didn't think that they would let the Palisades burn.
well, you said you had evacuated a couple
Yeah,
times.
it was the third time that we had evacuated, and it had become kind of exhausting to load your car up with all of these belongings and then go somewhere for a couple of days and then come back and unload everything and put everything away, and then a week or two later do the whole thing over again. And so this would have been the third time. And I didn't do, the first couple times, I wouldn't say I did a great job of evacuating, but this time I had the shortest amount of time because the winds that day were crazy. I mean, when they say they were 80 to 100-mile-an-hour winds, they were 80 to 100-mile-an-hour winds. The winds were crazy. They were blowing directly towards my house. I got a warning at 12:30, and I got the evacuation order 30 minutes later. So most of the 30 minutes was spent getting my dog's stuff ready, trying to
So,
make sure I had enough food for him. And like, that's pretty much what I spent most of my time doing. And I threw some clothes in a bag, and I grabbed my passport, and I grabbed some easy things to grab, but that was pretty much it. And my
yeah.
work computer. But I lost my personal computer. So silly.
So I think you said you left with like a couple pairs of jeans, couple pairs of shoes,
Yep,
couple t-shirts, couple sweatshirts, and that's pretty much it.
that's pretty much it. Yep.
So if anyone listening to this can even imagine, like Gretchen's had people donating clothes to her and her having to like literally start over with nothing. She's like, I was so happy to get socks. I didn't have any socks.
That's
You know,
right.
this is the kind of stuff that most people can't even fathom. Like
Yeah.
you never think that you're gonna just poof, all your stuff is just gone.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember you sharing with me too, like in your group chat, that some of the people in your community were upset because Malibu is a very wealthy. There are a lot of wealthy people there, obviously,
Yeah.
and and Gretchen's house was awesome. It wasn't a big Malibu mansion. It was a small house on a cliff overlooking the ocean. That was absolutely awesome. But she's not like dripping in wealth.
Yes. No, it
And
was my own little Malibu Barbie dream house. It was
Mhm.
small. And it was a house that I worked my whole life to get. And frankly, there was a lot of luck in order to get that house. And ended up buying it we were renting it. And the landlord loved me so much that made a deal and sold it to us for like half of what it was worth, just because she wanted to make sure it went to a good home,
Mhm.
like that it was in good hands. And so bought that house in 2021. Um, and yeah, and then the divorce like started in early 2023. So yeah.
And and that's a whole other thing because so
Yeah.
Gretchen's been dealing with this divorce, which has been really difficult as well because it started in early 2023. Now we're in 2025 and like literally no progress has been made
Right.
thanks to lawyers just not pulling
Yeah.
their weight or whatever.
Well, yeah, it's a matter of people not talking, and there's a lot of there's just a lot of like animus, I guess. I mean, I'm trying to be, open and try to be fair, but it requires conversation, and it requires, both sides communicating. And unfortunately, that's the situation we were in when the house burned down, and it's only gotten worse since then. So
Yeah,
now the question is whether to rebuild the house, right?
right.
And
With
it's
someone
funny,
that won't talk to you.
right? And so it's interesting. So I recently started therapy. Um, and and the therapist has been really helpful because I'm a strong woman, but at the same time, this situation has humbled me quite a bit. And I'm just trying to I'm trying to not, I'm trying to not get cancer from this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm trying to not allow this just tremendous amount of stress and grief because, you know, like my entire financial freedom is tied up in this house and it burned to the ground,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively, you know, and so, which is really scary at age 55, you know,
Yeah.
to have happen. And so the therapist is really trying to help me deal with the anger
Yeah.
and make sure that the anger and the divorce, which is really I'm butting up against a stone wall, you
Mm-hmm.
know, of someone who's not willing to talk, right?
Yeah.
Which is stonewalling, right? When someone's not
Mm-hmm.
willing to talk. So so I'm working with the therapist to try to understand what actions can I take when I'm being blocked, you know, because that's always been a real struggle for me because I want to take action at all
Yeah.
times, you know, there has to be a solution. You know, I've
Yeah.
told people that my superpower is turning lemons into lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, like, I always land on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I'm still able to do that, you know, and
Yeah.
reframe this because at first I'm reframing it as this is a new start,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is
Yeah.
a brand new start. So a week before the fire, I was trying to figure out how I was going to be able to move. We were in the process of trying to get the house sold. So how am I going to move? What am I going to do with all this clutter? You know, because he wasn't willing to move any of his belongings out of the house, which basically he had moved out, but he'd left all his trash, but I wasn't allowed to get rid of his trash. So I was trying to figure out how do I get rid of all this clutter?
Mm-hmm.
And then the fire kind of took care of that.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning when I was just like, oh my gosh, because I was talking to you and you're like, I don't know for sure yet if my house is gone. Like you had
Right.
evacuated, but you're like, I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm just praying it's not. And then the next day you're like, it's gone. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And you're like, you know what? It's a gift. It's a fresh
Yeah.
start. And it solves the issues that I was having with storage and figuring out what to do. And I just couldn't even believe how, like, your outlook, like, I was just like, you are the most inspiring person I've ever met. And then, like you were saying, like, and then time goes by and you start to have these triggers where the
Yeah.
trauma is being triggered because Gretchen's always been a fixer. She's always helping others, always, always, always helping others. And so she immediately was like, how can I help the community? And she's doing things to help the community. And then little by little, the triggers, like the trauma that you hadn't really processed started to
Right.
trigger in these little moments of realizing what was lost. And then to top it off, you've got this man you're trying to divorce who is like doing insurance fraud and saying that he still
Yes.
lived in the house. So Gretchen's been living in this house by herself for the last year and a half
Yeah.
because he had an affair and moved out. And now that the house burned down, he wants the insurance.
Right.
So there's
And
that.
he's lying in court. Yeah. And he lied to FEMA, you know.
Yeah.
He lied to FEMA and, you know, we're working through that. He told FEMA he was the occupant of the house and didn't even list me. And so FEMA got two applications and then denied them because they were like, we can't have two applications with, there's only one application. So yeah, I know it's like, and it's interesting. I talked to a lawyer recently who she said, you know, there's two things you need. She's like, you've got the proof. I'm sorry, you've got the truth, but you need the proof. And it's the intersection of the two.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that's what I've been kind of dealing with and working through and and dealing with just the obstruction and the biggest thing is whether or not the house is going to be rebuilt, you know,
Mhm.
and what that means. And you've got one side saying you don't want anything to do with this guy, cut and run. But then the other side is like, cutting and running means I basically literally take all of the wealth that I had spent my life accumulating, exchanging time for money, right?
Mhm.
Um, and and then basically just wiping that out and trying to rebuild wealth starting at the age of 55, which is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to make matters worse, you're about to go on your third lawyer for
Yeah.
this process because the lawyers just are not helping and they're so expensive. So you're spending all this money getting nowhere. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot to like in the process of that was happening anyway with the lawyers, just with the divorce. And now with the house, there's an additional thing added on with insurance and the money coming from the insurance company that really should be yours, but he wants it and blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah.
so if anyone listening knows of a really good lawyer in LA,
Really good family law. And the other
yeah.
thing I will say is that the insurance company, most of my neighbors have had just horrific stories about dealing with their insurance companies. My insurance company is USAA and they are the best. So I have no complaints about them whatsoever. I was blessed to get USAA through my dad, and he told me it was the most valuable thing he'd ever give me, and it's true. So like they've been really like right behind me the whole way. So
Yeah.
so I'm lucky in that regard too. It's like you try to like find like I'm lucky in a lot of regards, right? With the insurance company, I was blessed in that I had I've been seeing a guy for, I don't know, I guess it's going on 9 or 10 months. Um Andrew and I met in June. So, and he was right there for me afterwards and helped me get set up. One of his friends had gone to Thailand for a month, and I ended up being able to stay in his friend's condo with my dog, which was wonderful because, my ex basically started right away trying to block me from getting any help from the insurance company at all. So, there wasn't a single call like, "Hey, are you guys okay?" Like that never came. The very first time I heard from him after the fire was from the attorney basically filing a motion to block me from getting any assistance from the insurance company.
It's crazy the lengths people will go to hurt
I know,
us. And, for the people in our Thrive community that are listening to this, I know that there are a lot of us in this boat. And it's hard to wrap our head around. Some of the best advice that I've gotten from one of my therapists is stop trying to understand it
right,
because your brain doesn't work like that. So none of it's ever going to make sense. And but it is, it's hard to understand. Like, why would somebody kick me when I'm down? Like, I was actually living in the house when it burned down. I lost
right,
everything. You moved out a year and a half ago, took the stuff that mattered to you, haven't seen you since. And
right,
now all of a sudden, like, you're going to kick me when I'm down.
right,
Doesn't
right.
make sense. It's,
Well, yeah, and he set up his own GoFundMe page telling people that he lost everything, and yeah. And
mm.
then pledging to give half of the money to some wildlife thing. I'm like, I hope they're not holding their breath for that, whatever that was.
Well, speaking of GoFundMe, I know that a page was set up for you through a friend and somebody you
Yeah.
work with, I believe,
Yeah.
set up
Yeah.
the
My
page.
company and some friends. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that for you, being somebody that's always been giving, giving, giving to others, receiving is not something that you're really used to. Even
It's
in
tough.
in your couple marriages that you've been in, like you're just not used to that. So I remember you just being so kind of blown away by the donations that came in on that page. And so what has that been like for you to just be on the receiving end and
Well, I
having
will
to
say that without it, I don't know how I would have been able to I'm in an apartment now. I was able to, get an apartment and I was able to furnish it. I was able to get some clothes. I went to some nice consignment stores. I had accumulated some really nice things that I enjoyed a lot. And so I've been able to replace them. Interestingly, I've tried to replace some of the things with identical items so that I don't feel like everything is new, that I can
Right.
be comforted by some things that look like the things I used to have.
Mm-hmm.
So like the dresser I got was the exact dresser I had, like
Yeah.
there's certain things like I got rugs, like Ruggable actually replaced all of my rugs that I had purchased from them. They just replaced them. People were so wonderful afterwards, but yeah, it's been it's been really humbling. I think
Yeah.
it's really the word, to be on the receiving end um of all of this generosity.
Yeah.
Um in my high school, my best friend from high school, I lost all my yearbooks. And my friends from high school are some of my they're like my second family. And one of the teachers had an extra yearbook from my senior year, and she mailed it around to a bunch of our friends and asked them to sign it. And I recently got that yearbook, and it's just, it's like people doing stuff like that for you, knowing how much these little things mean. It's
Yeah.
it's I I equated it as like when people die, people say nice things about them,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually was blessed in that I got to hear some really nice things said about me, and I'm still alive. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, it-
Yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah,
you're you are always looking for the uh the silver lining, and which is
yeah,
important. I mean, we have to, especially at this stage of our lives. It's
right.
like we've been through so much already. We're still going, a lot of us are still going through stuff, and if we can't find the silver lining, then it's hard to get up in the morning,
Yeah,
It's just like, so I love what you said about the gratitude and the grief, because the grief, needs is just a given when you're going through what you're going through, and needs to happen, you need to process that. But at the same time, there's that silver
yeah,
lining, which is the people that just show up and give you their clothes off their back
that's right.
and donate in your GoFundMe page, which, by the way, I think your page is still up, right? Your
I
GoFundMe
think
page.
so.
Um, so I'll link to that in the show notes as
Okay.
well, or in the group under the replay, if anybody wants to donate to that, because Gretchen is still dealing with needing to replace things that she lost, and fund the things that she's dealing with as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So far he's been successful in blocking me from getting the insurance money, but excuse me, but I hope that I'll be able to, um, like you said, I'm in the market for a new attorney. So I'm hoping that I find somebody that's able to shake some of that loose. Because it's crazy that there's money available. The insurance company has paid it out. The court just locked it down. They put it in a blocked account that I don't have access to. It just feels very punitive.
It's
And
crazy. Like, you just lost your home and all your belongings, and
yeah.
they're treating you like that. Like,
Well, it's weird because they're like, well, she got a GoFundMe page, and so she should be fine. And I'm sitting there thinking, none of your beeswax, you know what I mean? Like, I should be fine. Well, I had to rent an apartment, which meant that I needed a security deposit, I needed rent. By the way, I still have to pay the mortgage on the house that's burnt down. I'm still paying credit card debt on the contents of the house, and those contents are
the
gone.
kitchen renovation, for
Yeah, there
example.
was a kitchen renovation, like I know,
Yeah.
renovated a kitchen, and yeah, my ex left me with all the debt. So, yeah, and so it's crazy that there's money that could actually wipe out the debt, and all that stuff, but they're not letting it. They just want it locked down. So, but gratitude, I mean, that's when it's almost like I think about the gratitude is when I get present to what is with me right now. And the grief is really about the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really trying, anytime I'm in the grief, I try to get present. You know, my relationships, you and all of my dear friends, most of them don't necessarily live in LA, but you know, being able to pick up a phone and call my friends and talk. Through this whole process, I ended up meeting a wonderful man, um, who's just been just such an amazing friend and partner in this. Who has actually sat with me while I bawled my eyes out. Um, and and just fed me tissues, didn't isn't isn't like and isn't afraid of the whole thing. Like a lot of guys get spooked by,
Right.
someone who has got as many problems as me with respect to going through a contentious divorce, the house burning down, financial problems, all of that stuff. But he's hanging in there,
Yeah.
which is,
And you went through quite a journey to find him. I don't know if you want to talk about any of
yeah,
that for anybody else that's dealing with dating sites. Gretchen's got some
online. Oh my
stories.
God.
We
That,
put we put them all into like categories. I don't know what I did
yes.
with that. I had that in a notebook somewhere. That was a while ago. I don't know where it is, but I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember some of the she was like she had like titles for the types of the people that she was meeting, and she's got some crazy stories. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like first off, like be safe out there. Like there are, you know, don't ever apologize for making sure that you're safe. And trust your instincts. Your intuition is always right. That's what I learned.
yeah.
Anytime I ignored my intuition, I regretted it.
Mm,
Um, and the fact is that if you go down the online path, it's, I mean, I was lucky in that, I met Andrew probably about a year into it, but there was a year and I probably went on, could have been 100 dates in a year. Maybe probably somewhere between 70. I know it was like probably more than 50 dates. There's a lot of dates that I went on, and there was there was a lot of texting and a lot of phone calls that went nowhere. A lot of lies. If somebody's gonna lie in their profile, then chances are they're just liars. Um, but I would go out on these dates and I would stand before I would go out, I would stand in front of the mirror and I would say, have fun, be curious, be yourself and give them a chance.
hmm.
And that's I would, I literally had to pump myself up before I went out on a date. But yeah, no, I had the scammers. I actually had one guy ask me for money, which was hilarious because, I kind of had a feeling on that one that he was, it was an AI image. I mean, all of it.
Mm,
There's even these websites now where, especially in the big cities, you can find like, have you dated this person? There's Facebook groups where they actually post some of the guys that are real creeps.
mm,
Um, and so some of the guys that they're just chronic. And so
yeah.
I have to say, I tried Bumble and I tried Hinge and I tried Match and I paid for these dating sites and I ended up meeting Andrew on Facebook dating, which was free. So, and the nice thing about Facebook was that you saw if you had mutual friends.
Yeah.
And so I actually had 4 mutual friends with him. And so that was actually kind of nice. And then it turned out we had other mutual friends.
Kind of a crazy story.
That is also nutty, yeah. He was next door neighbors with my kid's father, who's not my not my ex now. My kid's father, I met in college. Amy knew, and he had a lot of drug and alcohol
I
issues.
feel partially responsible for that.
Yeah. But my boyfriend Andrew was next door neighbors with my kid's father 15 years ago, and he passed away. He took his life about 10 years ago. So yeah, so that I'm convinced, call me crazy, but I'm convinced that my ex did me a solid
Yeah.
in making that connection.
Yeah. It's
I
the
mean,
least he could do after all the hell he put you through.
that's right. It's his way of it's his way of making amends. I'm convinced that because it's just too small world, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially LA, it's like,
Yeah. And Andrew and I were just like we're friends first, like
mhm.
he's a great friend and he's a good man. He's a good father. He's a good listener. He meditates every day. He's been going to therapy every week for years. Like he's a good person.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm blessed. I'm
Yeah.
blessed. So that's part of my gratitude, right? Like I look at this new life. I've got a new apartment. I'm meeting new people. I started playing pool a year ago, and that's kind of my meditation. It was something I'd always thought I'd be good at. And when I was in my former marriage, I would tell him, "Oh, if you want to get me a gift, I would really love to take pool lessons and learn how to shoot pool." And he of course never got me any lessons, and it was just always kind of in the back of my mind, something that I wanted to try. I thought I'd do. And then and then a year ago I did it. I just signed up for a league, and I've been taking I had a coach for a while, and now I have a pool table. I decided that was one of the things I ended up putting in my apartment because why not? you know
Mhm.
it's my place.
Yeah.
So yeah. So and it's nice because it's like meditation. And
Yeah.
I could be on that table for an hour or two,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's awesome that you found that.
Yeah, and now a whole community around it.
Hmm.
It's like you can reinvent that community like overnight.
Yeah.
And all these people that are just getting to know me now, you know.
Well, and your new neighbors too, right? Because now
Yeah,
you're in a new neighborhood.
yeah, absolutely. Went to a party last night. And Andrew, he's in the music industry, and so it was just a big jam session. And no, it's really no, it's nice. So
Mm.
99% of my time is spent with people that are brand new. Like
Yeah.
because most of my neighbors and the people that I had that lived close to me, everyone just kind of scattered. Everyone had to find their own new place. And
Yeah.
so
And
I
you
had
lost some of your other friends in the divorce because
and
people have to choose sides in an
that's right.
ugly divorce like that, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he had an affair with someone in my primary friend group. So it was just easier for the friend group to stay together by choosing him
right.
than me. Yeah. I know.
Crazy,
I know.
crazy,
Well,
crazy.
it's their loss as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I know, like you've been in the fitness industry for how long has it been now? 25 years? 30?
Yeah, 2000 and well, I started working the week before September 11th. So
Okay.
2001. So yeah, so about almost 25 years been in the industry.
And you want to tell the story about how that happened? Because I know that there are people in our community that are wanting to start over and they
Right.
don't know what that looks like. And for some people, it means with a new career or a new
Yeah.
business or something like that. But it can
Well,
happen
we
like
were both
that, right?
starting over. I mean, you were a little ahead of me, right? But um So this is my second time that I'm starting over from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
But we were at when you were moving from Colorado to the East Coast, you were making a change.
Yep.
You had been bartending, and that wasn't part of your life anymore, and you were trying to make a big change in your life. And I flew out to Colorado, and we were going to do a road trip together, and we were brainstorming what your next move should be. And we used to love to run together at University of Miami. And I've always been an athlete. You're an athlete. And so I think I said, you should become a personal trainer. And then you looked at me and you were like, you should become a personal trainer. And it made a lot of sense for me. And then you ended up buying the ACE, the American Council on Exercise, their personal training like test and the book and all that stuff. And then for whatever reason, I think that you decided not to do it at that point, but then sent it to me and I did it. I read the book and took the test, and I ended up becoming a personal trainer. And I was only a personal trainer for a couple of months before I became a manager. And within 18 months of becoming a personal trainer, I was running the Sports Club LA. I had gotten divorced. I had moved back
First
out to Los
time.
Angeles. Yeah, the first time I had gotten divorced, moved back out to Los Angeles from New York. I was in the LA in the early 90s, then moved to the East Coast with my ex-husband. And then when I divorced him, I moved back to LA. And within 18 months of being a trainer, I was running the biggest club in the country, the Sports Club LA in West Los Angeles. I had goals of like $500,000 a month and about 80 direct reports, personal trainers and Pilates instructors, nutritionists. And that really launched my career in the space. And I love coaching trainers. Like trainers, some people have called me a trainer whisperer because I love coaching the people that are coaching the people, like
Mm-hmm.
really helping trainers grow their businesses, helping health club companies identify what's going on in the marketplace, really trying to keep my thumb on the pulse, my finger on the pulse of the business and what's what members really need, what clients really are looking for from that relationship with their trainers. And so so I've been in basically personal training management for the majority of my career, and a bit of a geek, getting down into the weeds with the numbers and really understanding the data that is happening on the club level and helping the companies make better decisions and stuff. It's a lot of fun, but also really still working hands-on with the trainers too. I
And
just
you're doing
love
your
the
own thing on the side as well, aren't you? Are you
Oh
still?
yeah. I've done well. I started a biz. There was a couple of years, excuse me, in between. There was a couple of years in between um companies, and I tried my own entrepreneurial. um I created kind of like an agency for personal trainers, um trying to create partnerships with like food companies and some wellness concierge stuff like that. And that was I had some success, but I there was nothing like just being in the club, being surrounded by hundreds of people every day. I say it's imagine going to your office every day and inviting every client you've ever had to your party every day. And it was kind of like a party. And working with young people is a lot of fun, and working with clients is a lot of fun. I tell people I'm a transformation junkie. When somebody has a goal, I get very excited about their goal, and that's what like got me up and got me going every single day, got me out of bed, is
Yeah.
just trying to help people achieve their goals, because I do have this, for I don't know where it came from, but this optimistic, like you said, always there's always a silver lining kind of a thing. And I just think, my God, we have we have every single day we can make a change.
Yes.
So
Gretchen was the one that helped me when a few years ago we hadn't seen each other in a long time,
yeah,
and she had her and her now going to be ex had rented a house in Hilton Head, which is about 5 hours from where I live, and she invited me to come down for a week, and we hadn't seen each other in a while. And I had been dealing with this stuff with my gut where it was like bloated out like a pregnant looking belly. And I had been to like 10 different specialists who all wanted to prescribe whatever their specialty. Like one of them wanted to do surgery. I was put on medication for SIBO, small intestine, whatever, obstruction, balance obstruction, which I didn't have, which they never tested me for. Like every doctor was prescribing me with whatever it was that their specialty was.
yeah,
And I got 10 different diagnoses. Nothing was solving my issue. And I was so frustrated, and I had been dealing with this for years. And I walked into the house in Hilton Head, and the first thing Gretchen said was, "What's going on with your stomach?" I was like, "I don't know. Good question." And she was like,
yeah,
"It's inflammation. I want you to
yeah,
try this diet." And she told me, about this diet, put me on this diet, and I immediately healed it.
yeah, yeah.
Like she just, yeah, you just know your stuff, and you are just like, you're a problem solver, but you're also just, people. You're really just so good at,
Yeah, I love connecting. I
yeah.
love connecting people together. It's my favorite thing. I mean, even now trying to help my community, you know, I was blessed. I was at an event yesterday and I met the mayor of Santa Monica. We started chatting. Really, really cool lady. And I'm I shared with her about what my community is going through, and she offered to help. And so now I'm making connections because she's got connections that could in the governor's office that could potentially help our community, even though I'm not in Santa Monica, but she's willing to help us. So it's just, it's so cool. It's like never hesitate to talk and to like at one share what you can do, share your solutions, but also find out if other people have solutions and then make connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I know that before the fire happened, one of the things you were thinking about doing was when I had come out to LA last
Yeah.
year, and we were driving from Malibu to Santa Monica, and I had pointed out this cute little community up on the hill, Palisades something it was called.
Palisades Bowl.
Palisades Bowl, right across the street from the ocean, up on the hill. And I was like, let's drive through there, because Gretchen was trying to figure out where she was going to live at once they sold the house
Yeah.
and stuff. And it was the cutest community with all of these like basically like mobile homes, but they were more like made into like permanent residents. But it was it was just this on the hillside. They all had like
Yeah.
ocean views, and everybody was out walking their dogs, and everyone had cute little gardens. And it was just, and she's like, I want to live here. And she just loved the idea of just downsizing and maybe going on the road part of the time as well, like, living there and then having an RV or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I know that when the fire first happened, you were like, well, this makes it easy for me to move into an RV because I don't even need storage now. I don't own
Right.
anything or whatever. Are you still thinking about the RV life or no?
Well, I guess it really all depends right now on, on how this insurance stuff flushes out. Um, that community sadly all burned.
Yeah.
So that is still a possibility. I could end up buying one of those lots.
Yeah.
That's still a possibility.
Yeah.
Um, and the idea of an RV is also a possibility. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I yeah, I mean, right now I rented a pretty small 1 bedroom. It's perfect for me. It's the perfect size as far as I'm concerned. Um, And it's affordable, which I was so blessed. It's funny, I found out that my house had burned down on Wednesday, the 8th. And on Thursday, the 9th, I was looking at places. Most people were still in
In
shock.
shock. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I knew that with 50,000 people displaced, like available places were going to be gone quickly. And I'm so glad I did it because I actually found something that was affordable. And I was able to move into it on February. I have friends that are still looking.
Mm.
I
Couch
mean,
surfing.
yeah, and and that's the thing is like, I mean, I couldn't do that with a dog, I mean, I guess I could have, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try to get settled as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love the idea of living in an RV and, traveling, and that's what I'm hoping I'm able to do with this next chapter in my life is to really get to experience all the things that I haven't experienced because I've spent the majority of my adult life taking care of others.
Hmm.
It's like I've gotten to age 55 and now I'm finally realizing that I need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you've been into not so great marriages, which,
Yeah.
kept you kind of just contained in that respect. And yeah, it's time to explore.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us at this age that are finding ourselves in some sort of place where like I'm in a similar place where I feel like I want a fresh start. I just really want to explore. I'm just like living vicariously through like there's another woman in our community who's a friend of mine who just moved from here where I live in North Carolina to Flagstaff, Arizona, and she's posting pictures every day of her view of the mountains and it's snowing out and I'm like, I miss the mountains so much. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to end up? And it's like, there's the possibilities are endless, right? And we
Right.
we we can really start over at this point of our lives.
Right.
And I'm trying to, just stay in the gratitude and the possibility
Right.
and the freedom of that rather than
Right.
the stress and the grief and the sadness that kind of goes along with being
Yeah.
alone at this stage of my life, kind of thing, because I know many of us are. And so, just
Yeah.
trying to stay positive about it and
Yeah. In therapy, I came up with the idea because a lot of people ask me what I'm doing.
mhm,
And I don't necessarily have answers right now because there's so much that's kind of stuck, from a legal perspective and and all that stuff, the house and what's happening and the divorce and what's happening and all that stuff. And so I'm just kind of keeping my eye open for the options that are going to reveal themselves to me
mhm,
soon. I mean, and soon is a relative term, it's at some point in the future, but I'm not putting any pressure on myself to make any decisions right now. I'm
yeah,
right. It's like I'm just kind of I'm open to the options and seeing what feels right. Like I know you've got kind of the same thing. You've got options coming at you, and
mhm.
then you just kind of need to sit with them for a minute.
Yeah, and just wait for the guidance. Like I feel like unless you know what to do, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
And I found myself putting pressure on myself for, in different ways too. Like I need to sell my house by this certain time and frame and do this
Yeah.
and this and it's just like, no, like why put that kind of pressure on myself when I don't even know where I'm going? you know. And I
Yeah.
believe just like you said, like there's divine order and there's divine timing. Like I believe that like we don't say what the time frame is. That'll
Right.
be shown to us and everything. I don't know if you believe this, but I've chosen, after my mom was killed in a car accident when I was 18 in my car, which just completely rocked my world. And Gretchen knew me shortly after that. I was a mess. I was an alcoholic, drug addict, like mess. couldn't deal with it, blamed myself, whatever. But the only thing that has really kept me going from the beginning with that experience was believing that everything happens for a reason. And that belief, whether it does or not, I don't know, but having that belief has just helped me take, see the silver lining in things that don't make any sense. And so even for horrific things, like when my mom died, before she died, I didn't have a relationship with my father. My father went through this like spiritual transformation and like went to India when I was a teenager. I thought he was a complete freak. I didn't, could not relate to him at all. He didn't show up in my life the way my mother did. He didn't come to my gymnastics meets or,
Uh-huh.
he didn't participate. My mom was like my soccer coach and she, she just did all the things. And I also believed that he didn't really care about me because my mom was kind of a nag, although she had every right to be because I was just crazy teenager and she was worried about me. And my dad didn't really care. Like he was just like, stop trying to control her. She's out of control. I heard him say that to my mom once when I was on drugs and my mom was crying. And I made that mean that he doesn't love me. So my dad and I had no relationship at all. And then my mom was taken out of the equation,
Wow.
my rock. And my dad and I were forced to be in each other's lives. And I was forced to talk to my dad about things like, I want to go on birth control, like stuff that I never would have talked to him about. And long story short, my dad became my best friend. And I ended up on a similar spiritual path to his.
Yeah.
And we kind of like walked next to each other on our paths and
Yeah.
ended up moving him in with me to take care of him at the end. Like he became like the biggest gift I've ever had in my life. And so I like to look at my mother's death as like the reason for that was so that I could have a relationship with my father, because honestly, I don't know if I ever would have if she was still around.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, obviously, but I feel like if we can believe that everything happens, that's just one example of like a horrific situation where how could there possibly be a reason for this vibrant 43-year-old woman to be killed in a car accident? Well, I just try to find that. I try
Yeah.
to find it because it helps me to like
Right.
get through it. And so, you
Yeah,
know,
and it's not like you wished it, like things when because I'll always say the same thing. I know that it's going to be better, right? Like everything will be better. Obviously, I didn't wish for my house to burn down, right? I didn't wish for my marriage to fail. I didn't wish for my, ex to have an affair and any of those things, or I don't wish for any of that to happen, but I do know that I will be better as a result of it,
right.
as I was better as a result of all of the stuff that happened earlier in my life, and, and there's, there's some reason, there's some good reason why, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if you just believe that, because I do believe that, I'm
Yeah.
not, I don't know what it is, but I know it is.
Hmm.
I know it's going to be better.
I know
And
you
there's,
said to me like right after the fire, you said, this is a gift, and I don't really know what the gift is yet.
yes,
But I know that's what it is,
yeah,
because, I mean, at the time, you and your soon to be ex were
yeah,
fighting over the house. And so you're like, well, this resolves that because the
yeah.
house
He
is
had
gone.
stopped paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and he had stopped paying the mortgage because he said he didn't live there. And so I'm like, well, now we're kind of on the same, like, I don't live there either. So,
and we're talking about a $9,000 mortgage, right? Like
yeah,
it's something crazy. It's like,
yeah,
it's a lot to have to come up with the whole thing when you're not used to doing that. And
right. Yeah,
um,
yeah,
so so anyway, I think it's helpful. I know not everybody believes that everything happens for a reason, and some people say that it's a bunch of crap, but
Yeah,
I like to believe things that serve me, even though I have no proof of it. It's just like it's a belief that serves me. We don't have any proof either way, so why not choose
right.
the things that serve me to help me get.
Well, good things are going to happen, right? As a result. And, and obviously you don't ever know what it would be if it didn't happen, right?
Mhm.
So you have a choice to accept it or not accept it. And
Right.
not accepting something that's happened is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Like
But it's
you,
like when we did, Gretchen and I have both been through the landmark education
okay,
curriculum, if anyone's familiar with that, and they have an exercise in there where they go chocolate, vanilla, choose.
choose, right?
And they teach you about choosing, like that exercise was, I choose chocolate. Why do you choose chocolate? I choose chocolate because I like chocolate better. And they keep having you do it until you get to the point where you're like, I choose chocolate because I choose chocolate.
Right.
And then they say, flat tire on the side of the highway, choose. It's like, I choose the flat tire because
Yeah. Or
that's the
right,
reality. It's
because
like,
this is how life doesn't give you, vanilla or chocolate. Life gives you cancer. Choose,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Your mom was killed in your car. Choose,
Hmm.
right? Your house burns down. Choose.
Right. So we can choose it, or we can stand on the side of the road and kick the flat tire and say this shouldn't be happening, and that does us no good, you know? So
Yeah, yeah,
it's easier said than done, but when we can just come to terms with it is what it is like one of the things I say to myself every day. It's
yeah.
like my mantra. It's like because
Why is it the way it is? It is the way it is because that's the way it is.
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah. The other thing I always tell myself, especially lately, I read a book that helped me really become more dialed in with this, a book called Courageous Souls. It's an amazing book if anyone is interested in it, but it's basically a book that's it's Courageous Souls. What if we choose our challenges before birth? And it's about how like our soul chooses its curriculum before we even come into this body because we want to learn a certain thing in this lifetime and we want to evolve in a certain way, or we want to provide a light for others in some way.
yeah,
And there's all of these examples in this book, and there's a medium involved who's actually communicating with the souls. And it's really interesting. And anyway, it's a little bit out there, I'm sure, for some people to wrap your head around, but like if I can look at my life and my struggles as like knowing that my soul came here to do big work in this lifetime and to just like evolve in a big way. And if I could see the people in my life that have caused me so much grief and sadness and difficulty, even like right now as we speak, if I could see them as other souls that I made an agreement with before I came here, that I asked them to help me achieve this in my lifetime, and they're helping me achieve this by doing what they're doing. And if I can see it in that way, it makes me feel so much better. Rather than being a victim, I can be like,
right,
okay, I'm doing my soul is doing the work it came here to do. And it's really, really, really hard work, but I'm not going to repeat this in another lifetime.
right.
And that's
That's
the
it.
silver
I'm
lining.
done.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Like
right.
I'm not just surviving in this lifetime. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. If people are into that, surviving, like obviously that's not what my soul came to do in this lifetime. That's not what your
Right.
soul came to do in this lifetime. Like
No.
you've been doing big work this whole time. Like, since I've known you, getting into that first relationship and that first marriage, I mean, big work. That, I mean, you don't need to go into all the details about that unless there's anything you want to say, but like I'll just say her first marriage was extremely challenging with an extremely challenging individual who with an extremely challenging family attached to him, and like you could write books about this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I always tell people, I'm like, I could write a book, but no one would believe it. It would be like a new genre called super fiction
Yeah,
because it's, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's funny. I was talking to somebody about surviving yesterday. Surviving is not the bar I set.
right.
Thriving
Hmm.
is the bar I set. So whatever that requires, like, because so many people say that to me all the time, right? Like, I can't believe, you're spending time creating, helping your community create a web page, or why are you going above and beyond to do this? And don't you have enough to just take care of yourself? And I'm like, but taking care of myself that doesn't get me excited.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like, man, I'm just doing the minimum to take care of number one. That doesn't really get my juices flowing every day. It doesn't sound that exciting or inspiring for that matter,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be selfish today,
Yeah.
boring. So yeah, so surviving is kind of boring to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thriving is exciting, and this was point two in that conversation. If we're changing anyway, right? We're always changing. The ground is always moving beneath our feet. So if we're always changing anyway, why don't we just reach a little bit more,
Yeah.
like if my house burnt down, why settle for the bare minimum? Why don't really just completely change everything, shake
Yeah.
it all up,
Yeah.
succeed, be happy, be joyful, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of
And
just survive.
yeah. Well, and when we do that in the face of our challenges, we provide light for others. We provide hope for others. I'm sure you've had people say that to you. I've had people say it to me, like, I don't even know how you get through the day or how you do what you do in the face of this, that, and the other. And
Right.
it's like, yeah, like what, I don't know, what option do I have
Right.
other than like crawling into a fetal position and staying there for the rest of my life?
That's
You know,
right.
and
What
I,
option do we have? We have to change.
yeah,
Like, the sun rises and sets every day. Every day the earth is moving. We have to change. We have to, and so we have choices.
yeah.
I choose, I choose to, it's funny, the thing that people do ask me about Landmark occasionally. I'm not like a rah-rah, cheerleader, Landmark cheerleader or whatever, but I will say that it helped me basically pull my head out of my ass quicker. When I would dig myself into a hole, I was able to get out of the hole faster. And it's normally because I don't really look for people to agree with me and hand me a bigger shovel so I can dig deeper. I don't look for people like you, and most of my best friends in the world are people who challenge me.
Yeah.
People who surround themselves with yes people and people that just agree with them and listen to them complain and just nod their head and just say, oh, you poor thing. Like, I don't really see that as being helpful.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you need to vent, but most of the time I need strategy. I need
Mm-hmm.
somebody to, help me get excited. Like when you got me excited about that trailer park, which I know it sounds like it's the saddest thing in the world because the whole dang thing burnt down too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
nothing survived
Mm-hmm.
the fire. But hey, that might be an opportunity for not just an old trailer park, but it might be a brand new modern trailer park that I end
Yeah.
up in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of when I'm talking with people in my community, what I get excited about is how amazing it's going to be once it gets rebuilt. Because the fact is, we still own land on a cliff over the ocean in Malibu. It's
Yeah.
still beautiful.
Yeah.
So that nothing like that has changed. Now it's just a matter of rebuilding it so that it's safer
Mm-hmm.
and more modern,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you were saying about the people that are, just the yesing you to death and
Yes.
all of that, because I know you and I had a conversation earlier about looking like one of the promises I made to myself in the beginning of this year was that I would stop looking for answers outside of myself.
Yeah.
And I know that as humans, we have a tendency to do that, especially when we're going through big challenges in our lives. And I've noticed, and I know that you've noticed, that there are people in our lives, like they have our best interest at heart, but their advice comes from their perspective,
Right.
their baggage, their mindset. And sometimes it sounds really convincing and like good, but like we were talking earlier about like, no, you gotta trust your gut. And you said this earlier about the dating sites, but it's the same
Yeah.
thing with when someone is giving you advice, it's you have to listen to like what your own
Right.
intuition is telling you, even though your good friend has this advice that conflicts with that, it doesn't mean that you have to listen to it.
No obligation to take it. And the other thing we've also talked about is one of the things sisters need to do for each other is I'll give you my best, but I trust you that you're going to do what's best for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have no obligation to me,
Mm-hmm.
for that. And so I hate when I hear that friends do that, where they
Yeah.
get upset when you don't take their advice.
Oh yeah. I've lost multiple friends in the last few years through the situation that I'm currently navigating where people didn't like the path that I chose, you
Right.
know? Right. And I'll get into my story another time. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I chose a different path than most of the people were giving me advice to
Yeah.
take. The advice I was getting involved like lawyers and fighting and things that I had
Yeah.
already tried that didn't work. And so I decided to
Yeah.
lay down my sword and walk a path of peace, which a lot of people didn't agree with. And
Yeah.
some of those people aren't even in my life anymore because they were
Yeah.
like, they just were like, what are you doing? Like they were just
Yeah.
not just offended that I didn't take their advice, but they just couldn't understand why I would choose what I was choosing. And it's like, I'm my own person with my own
Yeah.
intuition and my own spiritual beliefs and my own, whatever. And so it's been interesting to see like who stuck by me through this process, even though they might not really understand what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Or maybe it wasn't the advice that they gave me. There are people that, although I didn't take the advice, they're still here with me and supporting me in my choice. And that's the difference, because some
Yeah.
of them, some of them walk away or are offended or whatever. Others, like you said, like a true sister, a true friend is like, you know, here's my best, take it or leave it.
Right.
Do you, and I'm here for you
Right.
regardless.
Right. And I trust that you're going to make, the decision that's right for you. And I'll support you in whatever that decision is.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel about it. Here's a perspective I want to share with you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I want to, and this is how I support you. But also just to at the end of the day, whatever that, just respecting and honoring that person enough to support them in whatever decision they make.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
important that we, especially at this age, that we really support our sisters,
Absolutely.
because we're all going through very similar changes and, life's, changing, our careers, our children, our relationships. Um,
Our
and we
bodies.
really, what's that?
Our bodies.
Yes, our bodies. I know our bodies are changing. Our bodies are letting us down.
Mm-hmm.
We're aging and and we're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with all that means and how we get treated in the world
I was just
as
gonna
we
say
age.
we become a little irrelevant in some places.
Yeah.
As I was admitting people into the new Facebook group for Thrive, I was moved to tears. And I'm going to go live in the group one of these days too, and just kind of go through some of the responses that I got from the people that were saying, I had a membership question in there asking people like what they what they need the most support with or something like that
Uh,
in at this stage of their life. And some of the answers in there, I mean, I was just crying because there's so many similarities, even though it's might be different. And a lot of people didn't even give specifics, but just overall, like Starting over was a big one that I heard over, and that means something different for everybody. You just lost your home in a fire. Somebody else, I know somebody else that just joined the group today, just lost her husband unexpectedly, like
Wow.
after all of these years and two kids in college, and
Right.
so there's lots of versions of starting over. But one of the things somebody wrote in there was saying how she is trying to find a job, and it's people don't respect people at our age, like compared to the young ones that are applying for the same
Right.
job, like we're kind of irrelevant. And that's a hard thing to come up against in the world. And it's, to me, it's kind of bullshit, because we have more wisdom than any of those young
Right.
people. We've been here longer. Obviously, we have more wisdom. But in some cases, people see us as like a disability to a company,
Yeah.
because we won't be there as long potentially, or because we might get senile or whatever they think. I don't know.
Right.
But these are the kinds of things that we're all up against in the world,
Right.
So
That's
yeah.
right. I know. They don't really give us any credit for our experience.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like women, especially, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Their loss.
yeah,
Right.
I know. Well, at least we have each other, and
Yes.
I'm glad that there's a lot of us coming together right now to really have each other and in different ways as far as that's concerned. And I know we're coming to the end of the time here, so before I start to wrap this up, I just wanted to ask you, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, or any like last thoughts that you wanted to share or anything like that?
No, I guess it's just, to try to inspire, move, touch, and inspire, right? Others into, you can just don't become the thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that if anything I fight against every day is like, I'm not a victim. Like I'm not a
Yeah.
victim. Like, and, you know, and while I'm not a victim, I also, I can do something with this.
Yes.
You know, let me show you what I can do.
Yeah.
And, and then it's just and then it's it's a little bit of forgiveness too, right? It's forgiving myself that some days I've got a lot of energy and other days I struggle, I
Yeah.
struggle
Yeah.
with it. Struggle with the taking care of myself. I struggle with, all the same things, productivity and all that stuff when you've got, so it's a matter of like just leaning on your friends and all that. But yeah, but I'm no victim, right? Some
Hmm.
bad things can happen to you, but you don't have to be that. What it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
How you react to things is ultimately what defines you, not what happens to you. Yeah, I've been, this is my second divorce. So what?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I just came through this kind of realization in a big way just recently, which is why this I started this whole Thrive, because I realized like I've been feeling justified in my victimhood. As much as I've been trying not to be in victim mode, I've been in victim mode. Like
Mhm.
this shouldn't be happening. I don't understand it, all of that conversation. And I
Yeah,
finally, thanks to all of the healing that I've been doing with plant medicine, and now I'm working with
yeah,
an amazing hypnotherapist who's completely rocking my world. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, I'm done being a victim. Like, I can
right,
use this to help somebody else. Like, that's why I'm going through it. Like you said, let me show you what I can do with it. And when I do that, I can help somebody else.
right,
And we can all do that instead of being a victim. There's so many versions of victims, like the woman that just lost her husband is a victim. You just lost your house, you're a victim.
mm,
There's so many different ways that we can categorize ourselves that way. But yeah, the way that we respond to the circumstances is what
right,
determines whether or not we're a victim. People might categorize us like you're a fire victim.
yeah,
People might categorize you that way, but you're like, no, no, I'm not.
That's right. You
Yeah.
know, oh, you're getting divorced for the second time. You can really pick them. You must have a
Yeah.
terrible picker. And, there's probably some truth to that, but it also it doesn't forgive, like the
It's
things that
taught you
happen.
what you don't want. And now that
Right.
maybe the third time's going to be like the most magical
Yeah,
relationship.
I don't know if I'll ever get married again, but I know that I'm going to I'm open to having love in my life. I don't necessarily see the need to make it a legal document.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not going to have any more kids. So what's the point? Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just enjoy it and be grateful.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you as far as, helping others too, my dad wrote a book. I have it sitting right over there. And the last line of the book, he says, in life, sit where you can make the most difference. And he learned that from a program similar to Landmark that he used to assist in called direct centering. And as an assistant, even the people in Landmark, how they have them like spread out throughout the room to
Yes.
talk to people or whatever. Well, that's how they train them. They told them to sit where you think you can make the most difference with the attendees.
Okay.
But he took that to say, like, in life, we should all be sitting where we can make the most difference. And I agree with that. And some of the difference that we can all make is based on our own experiences and
Yeah.
what we can bring to the world because of that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And,
are
and
such a light.
inspiring,
Yeah,
inspiring others.
you're such a light
Oh,
to watch you go through everything. Like even in the last couple conversations I've had with you and I mean, there's so much more that Gretchen didn't even talk about, like the stuff that's going on with like the lawyer situation and the insurance situation and the advice that she's getting and the people that just aren't willing to do the work or whatever. Like there's all of this stuff on top of the fact that she's trying to rebuild her life after having her house burned down and trying to get a divorce from this guy for the last couple years. She's been trying really hard to get a divorce that's just
yes.
not happening. And like, so like there's all of this stuff more than we can talk about on one podcast episode. But as Gretchen's friend, I watch her going through the stuff and I'm just like, you inspire me so much. You know what I mean? And when I see somebody doing this, like, like dealing with what you're dealing with in such a graceful manner, it reminds me that I have the ability to do that in my life, and I think that's what we're here to do for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And grace really comes through it's not showing the emotions, right? It's basically like I think that accepting is where your grace comes from.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna cry, and sometimes it's not pretty, but I'm not gonna try to lie to myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna accept what's happening. And I think that's where grace really comes from. And
Mhm.
and accept all of it, accept the generosity, right? Accept the grief, accept the trauma, like all of that. Whatever it is that's happening is just to let it kind of go through you
Mhm.
and see what happens.
Mhm.
Um and to give yourself permission to not be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the key. Let it go through you. Don't
Yeah.
don't stay stagnant in it. Don't hold on to it.
Yeah.
Let it let it go.
Let it go. And it's right, it's happening. People
Yeah.
are like, I already had a crappy year and then my house burned down.
Yeah.
Like, the heck? How
Yeah.
on earth,
Mhm.
That's nuts. But
Mm,
it did. It's true.
yeah.
It's the truth.
It did. It is what it
It,
is.
it is. I know. It's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
How did that happen? But All right. Well, there's something, like you said, there's some good that's coming from this. I don't know what it is, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've already created some good today by just sharing your story, because I know this has got to be inspiring for so many people that listen to this and just see your mentality and your grace through all of the situation. And I just appreciate you so much for being willing to talk about
I
it. And
love you so much,
I,
Amy.
I love you so much too. And for anybody that's listening to this that is over 50 and you're a woman and you want to be part of an amazing community of women in sisterhood, we have an incredible community called Thrive. You're invited to join us in there. It is for only women. Sorry, guys. Um, and again, I'll put that link in the show notes. amystarallen.com/thrive takes you right to the Facebook group. And hope to see you in there. And we will be doing more conversations like this in the series. This one was actually supposed to be streaming live. I was hoping to stream live so we could have some interaction and some questions and stuff for Gretchen, but um, we were having some technical difficulties getting it to stream into the Facebook group, so we had to do it without that. But hopefully by the next time I'll get that piece sorted out, and we'll be able to do it that way as well. So anyway, there'll be lots more conversations like this, and would love to have you as part of our community if you're called to do that. And Gretch, do you want to share anything? I'll also leave Gretchen's GoFundMe link in the show notes with this video, or below the video on the page that you're watching it on, if you're watching it on YouTube or if you're watching it in Facebook group. And is there anything else that you want to share, Gretch, about any other places you want people to get in touch with you or anything like that?
Well, no, I mean, I guess if we post this on the group, feel free to ask me any questions, or if there's any connections based on what I've shared that you'd like to help me with. I'm always open to connections, and, if any of you are in the Los Angeles area and want to connect or something like that, like, let's
Yeah.
let's
Yeah, that's
talk.
definitely another pro of having these conversations, is for because there's a bunch of people in this group and we don't even know where we're all located, right? So the more we can spotlight different members, the more the people that live in the same area, like you can go to coffee or lunch or
Right.
go to the beach or whatever you do in LA, you know?
Exactly. Hey, I shoot pool now, so
Yeah,
anybody
you
who
can go
wants to
shoot
shoot
pool
pool.
with Gretchen or walk your dogs together or whatever, you know?
That's
So
right.
So yeah, definitely, if you're watching this in the Facebook group, definitely, although we didn't get to stream live, you can still ask your questions and we'll get them answered for you in the comment stream.
Nice.
And any, comments that you want to say to Gretchen as well, you can do that all in there as well. And so thank you so much, Gretch. And thank you
Thank
for,
you.
for everybody for listening. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.